Back to life-changing event in an effort to stop the stigma surrounding mental health for those who protect and serve us.
Veterans and first responders are invited to an upcoming conference about the impact of trauma. And joining us this morning, Joe Whitledge, founder and executive director of the Defending Heroes Project. Good morning, Joe. Thanks for being in studio with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I've worked with you before on the Defending Heroes Project. Tell us a little bit about what it is and how you came about starting that.
Yes, the Defending Heroes Project was something I founded to help our veterans, military first responders going through traumatic events, things that supporting them through that, whether it's financially, anything we can do to help them through those hard times, as well as the mental health is another big thing that we're all about. It's an epidemic that is really impacting law enforcement and veterans. So we are doing, really want to do all we can to help that as well.
And this is free to all first responders out there, military veterans, and the spouses, the family members of those people as well. Why is that important to make sure that that's cost-free for them? Are these services not always available through our state and local governments?
It's something that for years, generational thing that is just, I'd say over the last maybe 5 years, that's finally started to be addressed and not, it's always been shove it down, pretend I can't show weakness, can't show something's wrong, and also not bringing family, getting them involved, letting them hear. You want to go home and say, well, this call I've had, because you don't want them to hear about that kind of awful stuff that maybe you had to see or deal with.
Now, I will say this, when I grew up, 30 years ago, when it came to like veterans and their service to our country, it was always said, you just don't ask people about that stuff. Just don't ask them about that. And that's how it was dealt with. There was no mechanism. There was no way to get some of those responses out of those heroes in some cases. Why has that changed in the last 5 years? Is it just because there's a greater number of people out there suffering with those mental health issues?
I believe it's, one, it's just like the speakers that I have come in, individuals that have stepped up and said, this needs to change. We've got to do something. And we all are pushed all over online, everything we can to get, hey, talk about it. Don't hide it. It's okay to talk about it or to not be okay from that.
I'll ask you this: have you been touched? Because I understand, ultimately people do not express these feelings, or share these feelings with people, their mentors, their peers, especially in their workforce. It could lead to suicide.
Absolutely. There's more. We lose so many more veterans, first responders to suicide than veterans. It's over 2,000 a year was the last number that I recall on that. And with first responders, last year it was over 100 and at least over 120 last year. We're over 100 already this year.
And I hate to ask this, but does that compound the problem? When a first responder arrives on the scene and someone's committed suicide and they were, a veteran, a local first responder, that just compounds their issue.
Right.
Because they see themselves in that situation.
Correct. And that's something like, I'm so glad to see things changing with that, because it's the way I was explained to this one time, and I like the way it's like a train car, and you've got all those carts, and you take that trauma and just you're pushing it back instead of dealing with it. Eventually, that train's going to stop, and all those carts going to come pounding through, and you're going to have all that trauma hit. It may be one incident, it may be multiple incidents that build up over time, but if you don't deal with them, it's going to.
And you're a Henderson police officer yourself, so you know firsthand, the law enforcement. You talk to folks, veterans yourself. So getting into the actual event, Impact of Trauma on First Responders and Veterans Conference. It's taking place later this month, and it's, as mentioned, free to first responders, veterans, military, and their spouses. Tell us about what the day entails and why this conference is so important.
It's going to be at the Preston Arts Center in Henderson from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on the 19th of this month. It's, like I said, wanted to have it free because I don't want to excuse reason why somebody can't be there for it.
Yep.
Want to make sure that anybody who wants to come can be there. And we've got 3 speakers lined up right now that are coming from all over the country. that I called them and I said, I want to put this on. They said, get me there, I'm coming.
And what are they talking about? Is it from personal experience themselves, or like what is the goal? What can people expect that are coming out to this?
Oh yes, they have all got just amazing stories of their traumas, and that whole generation of not dealing with it. Then when they did, now they're out talking about it. That their stories of really battling and dealing with those traumas, both on and off the job, that affected them. How they dealt with that. That there's hope, there's healing, there's to talk about it, and just really. We've got Michael Segru coming out of California. He's a veteran and also retired first responder. Wrote an amazing book that him and a psychologist wrote together that gives you both sides of that. We've got Dr. Ron Ruffo, who's a retired Chicago officer, and then Matthew Griffin, who's a veteran as well and a retired law enforcement.
And do you find it harder for people that, say you served in the military, you come back, you had traumatic experiences, maybe you're a witness to things there, you come back, and a lot of veterans, they will go on to pursue another type of career. And they can put those things out of their minds. But is it compounded when you're a veteran and then you come home, you still want to serve people, you're just a better human being than others if you're a first responder, and then you compound that with the experiences you have in your field of work?
Absolutely, it definitely builds up, and if you, like I said, with not dealing with it or thinking that you can't, or not knowing the resources and the things that are out there, and there's so many treatments and things that can really help. I mean, you're always going to deal with it. It changes you, and you're going to always have that, but you deal with that so it's not an active trauma in your mind that you're just reliving as as it's currently happening. So there's some great things that I don't want to get that out to everybody at the conference as well, so they know that.
Absolutely. And let's pull that full screen up one more time. Tuesday, November 19th from 8 to 5. Doors open at 7:30 in the morning at the Preston Arts Center in Henderson. And Joe, give us the website for folks that want to learn more about the Defending Heroes Project or where to register for this event.
Oh, yes. It's defendingheroesproject.org, as well as our social media pages. We have those. We have a link on there as well to register. There's a QR code as well. If you have one of the flyers, we've got those out as well. If you see one of those, you scan, it'll take you right to it. And you can sign up for that. Also, any vendors that have deal with first responders and things that may want to have a table there, or obviously any sponsors, we're wanting this to be free. We're not, so anything helps to make sure that we can do this and continue and grow it next year and continue this on. So
wonderful. Joe Whitledge, thank you for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll get a
Appreciate
check
having me.
of the forecast with Chief Meteorologist Griffin.